So did you go by yourself yesterday, or did you go with a group?
I went with a group of friends, and then I took my 13-year-old daughter with me.
Okay.
And I was telling the guys, like, after 1 kilometer and like we walked 25, she was so tired, and I was like, I had to push her up the hill. But
did
yeah,
you roll her down again?
no, she was actually quite good when we were going down, so I was
Okay.
really relieved. Yeah, but it was worth it though. But I think I would try to take a shortcut next time, not walk from Grindavík. It was a bit too far.
Well, as being a good member from the cluster, we are actually planning a staff trip next week, volcano site with the staff of the Ocean Cluster.
Ah,
So
Okay.
if you want to tick into box 3, like me and Thor, then you can join us.
Yeah. Will there be VIP parking so you won't have to walk so far?
You will handle it.
I'll be there.
And hopefully Blue Lagoon open as well.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. But
I heard that.
did you go the same way?
No, I took different routes.
And
One from the Blue Lagoon, and then one from the basic from Suðurstrandarvegur.
Yeah. Okay.
What
And
is
which
that?
one is better?
Does it have a name? Remind us of the name of the volcano.
It's actually the non-sexual active valley. That's basically a translation of Geldingadalir. So keep that in mind. I'm not kidding. Non-sexual active valley.
Okay, well that's an interesting volcanic
really
identification.
Amazing. I don't know who came up with that name in the past, but that's the name at least.
Yeah.
It's better than Eyjafjallajökull.
Yeah, it's much easier.
Yeah.
So we have a good kind of initial wave of folks joining. What I thought I'd do is leave a couple more minutes for folks to jump in. For those that are joining us, thank you. We have our wonderful panel in front of us, and we'll get started with the meat and potatoes of the session in about 2 to 3 minutes, and just leave a little bit more room for folks to join. But we're getting our volcano comments out so that we can focus on the topic at hand. I'm sure it's easy to be distracted by the sites that have been going on in Iceland the last couple of days, but yeah, we'll dive into 100% fish here in about 2 minutes.
And we might be doing fish and potatoes rather than meat and potatoes, just saying.
I agree.
And how much cooking is going on? So you mentioned people have cooked eggs, right, on the rock?
Yeah, they're actually the guys from, they were in the Ocean Cluster at some point in their early life. They are called lava cheese, which is actually a brilliant product. It's just the cheese. And their story was that they created this snack because they loved the grilled cheese that melted away from the sandwich. So they actually have now a campaign on Facebook where they're grilling the cheese on the volcano. People have been doing hot dogs.
Yeah.
They have fried eggs.
Bacon.
Egg, bacon, hot dogs, cheese. I can't remember. I haven't seen anyone doing actually popcorn.
That's a pretty extreme version of a food truck to be cooking on lava. But it's creative.
But because you can create easily popcorn over open fire. You just take 2 sieves, sikti, how do you say that? So, sieves, and you spray the corn with a little bit of pan oil or something, and then you put them together and you put them over an open fire, and then you create the popcorn.
Okay.
So
You'll
maybe
have to go again
next week.
Yeah.
with the popcorn.
So if we get a group vaccinated, then we can come out there and cook popcorn on a active lava flow in Iceland with you folks.
I think when you travel, you should bring some lobster from Maine.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And we will cook that with the lava.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
This sounds like a good challenge.
Yeah.
Why don't we get started? We're hitting that 5 minutes in here, and I'm sure a few more folks will join as the session wears on. But thank you for joining our Entrepreneurship in the Blue Economy series. We're focused on 100% fish with our friends from Iceland and the Iceland Ocean Cluster. I want to offer, continued thanks to our series sponsors in Eton Peabody and the University of Maine Graduate and Professional Center, as well as Best of Maine. It's been a funny time to try to deliver programming. So it's, great to have people supporting us and a lot of fun to be able to engage folks virtually, even though we can't come together in breweries like we used to. So this series has been a really cool way to stay connected, and we're looking forward to a few more coming up later this spring. But without too much front end administrative stuff, I want to hand off to Patrick Arnold, the New England Ocean Cluster CEO, to introduce our panelists today. And please look at the chat, drop questions in there, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can towards the end of the session. So without further ado, Patrick.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everyone. My name is Patrick Arnold. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the New England Ocean Cluster. And this is part of our Entrepreneurship in the Blue Economy series. Today, we're focused on 100% fish. And in Iceland, full utilization is important enough to have a word, fullvinnsla, full utilization. And for us, we see this as a best practice. Our focus here at the New England Ocean Cluster in partnership with Iceland is to look at the best practices that they have put in place and adopted over the years on how to value add in the economy. That is really the trick. So before we dive into that, what I'd like to do is have each of the panelists introduce themselves briefly. We'll start with Thor, and then go to Berta, and then Hrun, and then Bala. And so Thor, if you could just open us up with an introduction and introducing yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Great to be with you. I am the founder of the Iceland Ocean Cluster, and my name is Thor Sigfússon. I'm a dedicated fan of the New England Ocean Cluster. We're building this network in the US, so I'm really excited to be with you today and look forward to the discussions.
Hi,
Berta.
I'm Berta. Thank you. Hi, I'm Berta Danielsdóttir. I'm the CEO of the Iceland Ocean Cluster. I've been working there for 4 years, and I'm really looking forward to this session. But I just wanted to let you know that I've been to the volcano twice, and I was there yesterday.
Tack. Hrun?
Hi, I'm Hrönn Margrét Magnúsdóttir, and I'm the founder of Feel Iceland, which was actually founded in the Iceland Ocean Cluster. And we've been there since 2013 and actually just moved in December. I've been to the volcano once, so I'm gonna top you, Berta, maybe next week.
Excellent. And Bala?
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Bala Kamlakaran. I'm a resident of the Ocean Cluster, but I'm also the founder of Startup Iceland and also Iceland Venture Studios. I mainly work with founders in building companies, and I have not been to the volcano because of doctor's orders. And if anybody's interested, I can talk about it later.
Excellent. Well, thank you all and welcome. And I would like to add on the Feel Iceland front, we'll hear a little bit more from Hrönn later on, but it is collagen, and the collagen in the nutraceuticals and cosmetic applications is also accessible right here at the New England Ocean Cluster. So anything you see here, you can buy Hrönn's products here locally at the Hus in Portland. So with that, what we're endeavoring to do today is use this as sort of an open forum question and answer session, where I'll ask each of our panelists here a question, and we will be fielding questions from you all in the chat and what have you. But we really want to get some storytelling from each of you regarding the best practices that you have put in place in Iceland. One thing I want to point out is that over the last 20, 30 years now, I guess, the GDP per capita in Iceland has been on a curve like this. And yes, there was the financial crisis back some time ago, 2008 and what have you, but the curve remains like this. And for us, focused on 100% fish and full utilization, adding value to the resource is the only way to increase your GDP per capita. So to put that in context here for Maine and the United States, Iceland and Norway both have been in the top 10. If they were states, they would be in the top 10 in the United States of GDP per capita for the last decade. In the last 5 years, they've both been in the top 5. So when we're telling stories here, these are anecdotes behind folks, businesses, and people who have been value adding in the economy locally. And that's what we're all focused on here at the New England Ocean Cluster, and what we're doing in collaboration with the Iceland Ocean Cluster. So with that, what I'd like to do is start in with you, Thor. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the origin story of the Iceland Ocean Cluster, engaging industry leadership in the fisheries and the traditional industry that was the leading economy in Iceland, and how that worked into 100% fish movement. Can you shed some light on how that came about and your work in that?
Yeah, I think that probably we need to go back to my PhD studies, where I was actually researching how entrepreneurs connected, especially from the Icelandic side, meaning that they needed to move abroad with their products and expand. And I was always wondering what kind of characteristics there would be that would be the absolute sort of best in terms of expanding these startups. But I realized it wasn't only the characteristics of the startup founders, it was also the industries that they were involved with. So the industries that were a little bit more closer seemed to be the natural resource industries. And it's obvious, these are industries that have limited resources as people have always perceived them, at least. And due to that, people tend to keep their network and the relationship close and not open up. But the challenge was for these industries that to grow further, they need to open up their network and take these steps upwards with regards to their value line. And to do so, they needed to meet with people from completely different sectors, people that had no knowledge in fisheries, but would know something about marketing, something about developing byproducts, packaging, and what have you. So that was really the initial challenge. And I from that point, I realized that trust was the essence of the whole thing, to build trust. And we were lucky enough to start to find ways to get people to meet. And I think we should keep in mind that I am, of course, kind of spoiled. This is the culture in Iceland where we would find the mindset being probably one of the best in the world in terms of focusing on quality, being interested in being world class. So before we stepped into this picture, into the scene, there was this already quite a dynamic industry and dynamic opportunities. But we still feel that what we did was to step in at a perfect timing, because we were able to do lots of matchmaking, not only with our house, which I know Berta will talk about, but also just with the idea of getting people to meet. But it's all based on the trust. And to build trust is probably the key to the success of the clusters that we're working with right now.
So on that front, I would like to ask Berta a little bit about that, the building of trust. How with the hús, we call it the hús, but Sjávarklassen in Reykjavik, the actual physical space embodying the ocean cluster, how does that work to engage entrepreneurs and connect with CEOs? And, you know, because building trust is an experience. How does that space do that, contribute to that?
Well, actually, Patrick, we build the trust between people with our coffee machine. But I will come back to that. However, if you look at the Ocean Cluster House in Reykjavik, we host over 70 companies there. and we have a healthy mixture of entrepreneurs, startups, SMEs, and then we have some of the large corporate companies in Iceland. They also have a small presence there as well. So when you're at our house, the Iceland Ocean Cluster house, which we will now call the house, this is the Icelandic word, the tenants in there, when they are working there, when you enter the building, you just feel the vibration, you just feel the power, because everyone is working towards some goal, and there is no one working there that is actually sort of in their comfort zone. They know what they're doing. So they are all trying to be great. They're all trying to achieve. They're all trying to be the next big thing. So that creates a little bit of the atmosphere of the building. What we do actually, because I mentioned the coffee machine, how we build the trust is that we have one very strict rule in the Ocean Cluster house, and that is you are not allowed to have a coffee machine in your office. We have 2 good coffee machines with a lot of coffee beans, so they take a little bit time of brewing each cup. And we have people standing in line 2 meters apart due to COVID, waiting for the coffee cup. And what happens? When you stand in a line, when you stand next to someone, you start to chat because you feel uncomfortable just standing there silently. And when you start to chat to people, you get to know them. And when you get to know people, you start to trust. And when you have started to trust people, you start to share information. And we actually have some stories about companies in Iceland that have been founded around our coffee machine. And one of them is the company Norðursalt. There was this entrepreneur, he wanted to become a salter. He was thinking about it around the coffee machine. There was an entrepreneur there from actually quite a large machine producer in Iceland. He was also having a cup of coffee. And they started talking around the coffee machine. And after lunch, they have established the company, and it's still there. Because one had the idea, he wanted to do this, the other one had the technical solution. So together, they created the company Norðursalt. Also about that, when people are working in a co-working space like that, we have a few co-working spaces in the building where we put the entrepreneurs together and the startups, and just being next to an SME or the presence of a large corporation, it gives them the courage and the vibe to just stand up, knock on their office or open the office and say, hi, I have a problem. May I ask you for help? Because you would probably never walk around one of the Wall Street or financial district street, and you would never knock on the door of those companies and say, hi, I have a problem, because the desk clerk would probably have to call 55 people before she would find the correct person for you to give you the solution. So this is actually what the house does, and this is how it connects people together. But also we have good meeting rooms there. So for a startup to come into a facility like the house, being able to invite their investors for a meeting in a good office space, it gives them a little bit of it gives them confidence that they don't have to say, hey, I have to meet you at a coffee house, or I have to come to you. They can invite you to their home. Also, those companies that are in the house, because we have all the same mindset, about 70% of the companies, they have done some kind of cooperation together. Because why go long distance if you can go next door and say, hey, I'm going to set up a website. Can you help me? And I'm going to buy the service from you, and I might get some good house agreement on it. So these are the things that help us, but it is also tricky, and we have been very careful on how we select into the house. Because I mentioned the entrepreneurs, the startups, and also the SMEs, but we have also been able to attract investors to be located at the house, and that is super important. Because one thing that startups are always trying to approach are investors. But it's also a great opportunity for the investors to be able to be there on site and follow them and see what they're doing and how they're handling things. And they can walk into their office and just sit down and offer their advice, or how are you doing? Maybe sometimes we just need to be mom and dad and give them our shoulder. Some days they are like that when they get a no to a big grant they have been waiting for. So I think the house, a facility to mix those entrepreneurs, SMEs, and everyone into one pot I think that's the secret behind it, and also a great coffee machine.
Yeah. Well, when we give folks a tour of the Hoost here, we always refer to your line of there, in the rule, there is no coffee machine allowed in your office. But the one thing that I will say also is, for us, the Hoost being more the word for home, right? In a space like that, everything you just described, it's important for this to feel like a home. Because when we come to the Sjávarklassen, we feel the energy, but there's also that welcoming, collaborative, family style collaboration that just, you can feel it. So yeah, that's.
If I may add, it is exactly what you're saying, Patrick, because this welcoming, I mean, entrepreneurs and startups, they feel that everyone is there to support them. They can knock on every door. And we also have those glass walls, so you can't be close behind some curtains or some walls. You have to be there. If you're at the Hoost, you have to be willing to cooperate and support and work together with others. So I think you described it perfectly.
Well, and being that we're partnered, we follow those rules exactly, and no one has to apply for a cup of coffee here. So, the door is open, just reach out. But speaking about the feeling, I'd like to talk to Hrun here about Feel Iceland a bit. You have an origin story as a startup in Iceland, adding value, collagen extracted from fish for cosmetics and nutraceuticals. Can you tell us a bit about your origin story, what it is as a startup to participate in this 100% fish movement in Iceland and to participate with Sjávarklassen? Can you just share a bit of that story with us?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually, before I came to Sjávarklassen, I was working at a prosthetic company, one of the world's leading prosthetic company in Iceland. And I was working in product development and product management. And I had been working in like marketing and branding before. So I had been thinking a lot about like the fishery here in Iceland, because it's like our main industry here. And my father-in-law, he had a fishing boat and he was a captain in one of the small fishing towns. And I'd been watching like how we often just didn't utilize the fish enough. And we were often just selling raw material abroad where they made products, and a lot of value was created outside of Iceland. So I really wanted to somehow increase the value. I had one idea, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it, so I went to the co-working spaces at the Ocean Cluster. I had heard about Thor and I met him and I really liked the vibe there. And then Thor came to me and he was telling me about how you could like utilize the fish skin to make collagen. And actually I had no idea what collagen was at the time, so I went and Googled it, and I found out that you can use it for like food supplements and skincare products, and it's like one of our main structural proteins in the body. So I came up with the idea to have a company where you would have food supplements and skincare products that work together from the inside out and outside in, and we would try to use as much byproducts as we could, starting with the fish skin. And so we started producing our products, and the first product came on the market in 2014, and it was a slow start because there was no other product like that in the Icelandic market then. And but with some patience and when we got in some investors, and to back up Berta's story, one of the investors came from the Ocean Cluster where we met him. And today it has become like one of the leading collagen brands here in Iceland, and one of the most sold food supplement in Iceland as well. And what we have done as well, and we're actually going to launch this product in next month. So here we have the collagen from the fish skin, and this is a facial serum which you put on your skin. And we also have digestive enzymes from cod in it. And then we've added hyaluronic acid, and we're working with a company called Symtech, which is a leading company in extracting enzymes from cod. And it's a really good product, but here it's cod in a cosmetic product, both the enzymes and the fish skin. And then we also did like a cooperation with one of the leading drink manufacturers here in Iceland. So we also have like cod in a can. So we have like collagen, and this is a carbonated caffeine drink with collagen, 5.9 grams in it. And this is actually last month, this became like the leading caffeine drink in Iceland. So we're selling more than Red Bull here in Iceland. And yeah, and we have like different colors. So like now we have cod in so many things that we didn't have before, and we're just starting. We have so many ideas how we can use things from our fish, like to make high-end, really nice products.
That's phenomenal. That is so exciting. And my caffeine does nothing for my skin. So, you know, that's we look forward to getting that product over here, and we're excited to have some of your products here already, but more to come. On that though, I have a quick question about how the origin story is awesome, but you didn't originally come from fish or come from ocean. So was there any aspect to it that attracted you to the industry, or was it just sort of a, you know, it all started over a cup of coffee sort of thing?
Actually, if when I was 20 years old, this would probably be the least exciting thing I would want to work with was fish. But like I saw the opportunity how we could utilize the fish better, and like I had the background in product development and product management and branding, and I thought I could actually use that experience. And I think it was kind of good coming from a different background and a different industry, because then you have a different perspective on it. And it was so difficult to convince my father-in-law. He's a captain. He just wants to sell the fish, and he just wants to be able to like pay the bills for the boat and everything. And I was trying to convince him, like, you can get more out of the fish, you can get more money if you do this and that. And he was like, I don't care. I don't have time for that. So yeah, I think you need like Thor was talking about, and Berta, to get people from different industries as well, because you have a new perspective then. Yeah.
That cross-disciplinary aspect is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. So on that front, talking about the broad spectrum of different industries and different resources, I'd like to ask Bala a question here about the importance of bringing people together. These creative collisions, when we started working with Thor, he talked about creative collisions, and Berta talks about those collisions happening at a coffee machine. We were very well aware we could not write that into a business plan for the New England Ocean Cluster, even though it remains true to this day. But creative collisions, productive collisions, I'd like to hear your perspective, Bala, on the importance of bringing people together as a means of creating world-class startups and companies. You know, because again, it may not fall into a business plan, but just how important is it from your perspective?
Thank you, Patrick. I think, you know, of course, Run and founders like Run are the reason I do what I do. My whole backstory is also, you know, just from a context point of view, I think is important to answer your question. I mean, I've been a fan of Thor and fish since I moved to Iceland, when I was recruited to work for one of the banks. And I actually, the bank had a specialized seafood offering. That means we only served seafood companies globally. And I was back in India, appointed as the head of that bank to build a branch in India. And I was talking to my family about how excited I am about fish. And by the way, in India, fish is something that people don't want to be close to because it smells. And you know, in India, majority of the population does not eat fish because of the smell. Of course, I was growing up eating fish and meat and all that stuff. So I was talking about how excited I was about fish, and my mom pulled me aside and said, you know, you have 3 master's degrees in computer science, economics, and business. What are you talking about fish? You know, shouldn't you be talking about something bigger? And I said, there's nothing bigger than fish, you know? So to put context to fish, I think when I was working in the bank, I read a lot about the seafood industry, and the second most traded commodity after oil is fish in the world, you know? So this is something that is part of our, you know, economic engine. And so, you know, 2008, the bank, the financial system collapses. I was still in Mumbai. I moved back to India and I moved back to Iceland. And my wife was asking me, maybe we should just go back to the US because that's where I was before I moved to Iceland and take on my management consulting job back. I decided to say, you know what, I actually like living in Iceland. I want to build something here. And she looked at me and said, what are you really going to build? You've never built anything. You always work for somebody. You know? So I turned around and said, no, I'll figure this out. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'll figure this out. 2009, I looked around in Iceland, and for those of us who lived in Iceland, 2009 was a very, very interesting year. I looked around and asked what nobody else was doing, and nobody was talking about startups or entrepreneurship or building brand new companies. And I found that very strange. And because that's how you build new things. You build new things by starting new companies. And I decided to invest in one team. I had no money, and I said, I'll be an investor and start investing. And I did what any 3 master's degree, very successful career banker would do, which is I crawled back to my family and I begged them for a little bit of money so I'd become an investor. And my cousin from India took pity on me and said, okay, I'll give you some money, do something with it. And I invested in one startup, and this startup was Clara. I don't know if anybody knows about that or not, but in the history of Iceland, this was the first company to be acquired into Silicon Valley. And that happened in 3 years from the time I invested. And I think it is important to put some context around your question. That's why I'm telling this backstory. The acquisition of Clara into Silicon Valley would not have happened if I had not decided to host this event called Startup Iceland to bring diverse groups of people into a hall and talk about entrepreneurship, startups, and building new things. And the story goes, I actually wrote a blog post inviting Brad Feld because he was writing a book on startup communities. Actually, if people have read the book, chapter 14 has a little bit about Iceland on how Startup Iceland came to be. And I invited him and he agreed to come. And in 2012, we held the first event. And I put Gunnar Holmstein, the CEO and founder of Clara, next to Brad Feld during lunch. They started talking and Brad asked him what he was doing. And Gunnar told Brad what he was doing. And Brad looked at him and said, you know, I used to be in the board of a company called Jive. They should talk to you. And immediately that connection happened. In a lunch in Ausbrew in Keflavik, from an entrepreneur from Boulder, Colorado, meeting a founder in Iceland, right? And the acquisition of Clara happened in Silicon Valley because Brad made the introduction to Jive, which was a NASDAQ-listed company which acquired Clara. So that would not have happened. I could not have envisioned something like that happening, right? So the idea is not that you have some specific motive behind bringing these people together. You need to have a common goal to bring people together, but the magic and the serendipity happens on its own. You know, when you put a lot of smart people into one room or in one house or one setting, usually they talk about smart things. And usually that leads to smart things being built. And that is how I say magic happens. And, you know, as you can see, you know, although I wear an Icelandic sweater, I'm an Icelander, but I'm not from Iceland. You know, there's nobody else could be more diversified than me sitting in Iceland talking about what I do here, right? And that happens because Iceland is a welcoming place. It has always been very open to people with new ideas and new things and founders wanting to build new things. And I saw that in 2009 and I said, you know, this is something that is worth betting your life behind and just working towards building that, which is what I do now, which is kind of helping founders build great companies out of here. This wouldn't happen if we don't have an open mind about bringing diverse people into even old industries. I'm not talking about fishing. I'm just talking about any industry, you know, whether it is transportation or energy or fishing or, you know, the poultry or agriculture or whatever may that be. We need to bring new smart people to come in and look at this world and reinvent it. I mean, that's the only way we're going to move things forward. Otherwise, you know, I tell this to all my students, if we want a different future, it cannot be a copy of the past, right? Because if we copy everything that worked in the past, the future will look like the past. And that makes no sense, right? The future, by definition, should be different. It needs to be unique and it needs to be something better. So we have to do things in a new and different way. And for lack of a better word, the only way we get new ideas in is to get new people from different backgrounds to come in and participate and be open to that, right? You need to be open to that. And that's why the cluster and models like that really work in the broader context of building new things. And I'm fortunate to be sitting in a cluster. And these are just some stories, but there are stories like this happening all the time because the meetings are happening all the time. The serendipity is happening all the time. And I mean, Iceland today has become a vibrant place for starting and building great companies. And that is because of things like this that have kind of been opening up. And I do believe that this is not an Iceland story. This can be every town, every city story, right?
Well, and that right there is why we're doing this. In Maine, there's an old saying that is, I'm going to say it's dead because it's a traditional saying where people say from away, you know, if they weren't born here, from away. There is no from away. There's either those who just haven't gotten here yet or those who just arrived. But the inclusion and the openness and the diversity, we don't know what we don't know. That's going to come from someone we don't know. So while we can't write into the business plan the collisions at the coffee machine or the lunch with Brad and all of that, we can recognize that is where it happens between two people getting together. So on that note, and I'm going to open this up to the whole panel. Our experience so far of getting people together, even in COVID, distance or whatnot, is that there's a certain amount of attraction that's necessary. People need to be attracted to something to want to come together on something. And like Berta talked about, they all have to be oriented towards collaboration and open-mindedness. What are some ideas and some things that you have done in Iceland or have identified that has helped bringing people together? Things that help with attracting entrepreneurs and investors to buy into this. It starts with a cup of coffee or it starts with a lunch. You know, what have you seen work? What have you tried? How have you gotten people together?
Well, I mean, having an active volcano helps. No, you know, all jokes aside, I mean, Iceland, I say this with tongue in cheek, Iceland is a beautiful place. People want to come here. And I do believe that there are lots and lots of places that have the same quality or the same attribute, right? There are plenty of places in the world that are just fundamentally great. The only reason I use Iceland as an example is because I live here and I've seen this from an insider outside review, because I'm not an Icelander. I've just moved in as an outsider in, but now I live here. So this is my home. I mean, obviously the place has to be a lot more welcoming, right? I think that's one of the most important things. People should be welcome to come, and they should feel like they can, make a stance, like they can build something, they can do something. I felt that way when I first came to the US from India. I mean, again, the US is by far the epitome of land of opportunities, right? Anybody can come and build anything and make yourself a billionaire. And I felt the same way in Iceland. And I think that is what other places will have to create, right? You need to be very welcoming for anybody. When a founder comes in, they don't come like Elon Musk, right? I think even when Elon Musk first landed in Silicon Valley, nobody knew Elon Musk, right? And that's how it is. That's how it always is. And at least I feel that Iceland is very open by definition, and I think places have to be built that way. You can't really target and attract people, but what you can do is to build a very vibrant environment so people want to come there. At least that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Thor, what do you think about how to bring people together? Are there best practices there that can be scaled and replicated?
I think it's a very good question, Patrick, and we actually have discussed this quite often. And I think what the recommendations that I would have for other clusters, and we are seeing it actually in your work, and I feel from even our Norwegian friends, is that the clusters themselves, all these networks that are trying to get people to cooperate, they need to have a little bit of an image that they are hands-on. They are attracting people because things are happening within their ecosystems. It's just not for chatting. It's basically people are meeting because things are happening, new companies are being formed. And this is, I think, what has become sort of the image of the Iceland Ocean Cluster. And I feel it also from your side and from others now in the clusters community around our sort of parts of the world, that this is the crucial part. When I started the cluster, I met with people that I brought into the first meetings. They were like 10 or 15 of them, and these are mostly tech people or people from the seafood industry. And what was interesting is that one guy actually raised his hand and said, "Thor, there's some mistake here." And I said, "What is the mistake? Where are the people from government?" The fact was that they had never sat down to discuss the opportunities that the companies had in creating value. They had most of the time been sitting down to talk about how bad government was, or how high taxes were, or regulatory frameworks, which are all fine and dandy. But our role is to show these companies that they have a lot of opportunities if they collaborate. So that's been our message. I think it's that it has worked wonders and is the most important part of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Chris, I believe you had a question coming from a young entrepreneur perspective. Can you share that with us?
And it's a question that I actually had, and Ron kind of brought it up in my mind. I think about this reality that sometimes the youngest people have kind of the most creative and crazy ideas, but if there's young people on the audience, and by young I mean perhaps under the age of 30, sometimes they don't have the maturity or the patience to sit down and really get ready for a long battle with an entrepreneurial project. And so, you kind of mentioned it on this element of, if I asked myself when I was 20, would I like to be in college? And heck no, I find myself thinking about what I do today. And if I describe the task to my 22-year-old self, I wouldn't be excited to build a career around that necessarily. But now where I sit today, I have so much more experience that guides me in a specific direction. How do we empower young entrepreneurs that might have creative ideas, but it disappears in an instant because they're not aware of the process that they can follow to become an entrepreneur? So thinking about us all being a little bit older, what are some of the ways in which we engage these young minds and then encourage them to embrace the infrastructure that you've all created, that we're a part of here in New England? You know, what might you say to us or to other entrepreneurs that have an idea? Like, how do you plug in so that you don't have this great idea disappear and then you're off to the lake with your friends on the weekend and that opportunity might sit, you know, untapped for another 50 years?
Well,
I
we need
mean,
to unmute. Hrun, I think Hrun, you were talking, but you are still muted. Can we unmute Hrun?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. So when I was like 20, I always, and before that, I always knew I wanted to start my own companies. And I had so many ideas what I was gonna do, and so many were so bad. And I think if I had done something then, I probably would have quit because I didn't have the experience I needed. So I think like the most successful startups, I think you have to have some experience to build on, and then use those creative ideas. Because I think often if you lack the experience, it's gonna fall apart. But if I knew when I was at the Ocean Cluster starting Feel Iceland what it was gonna take, I probably would not have done it. But it's the same like when I was going to walk up the volcano yesterday, I wouldn't have done it if I realized how far I had to walk. But now I'm here, and like it's small steps, and it's something you can overcome, but you need to be patient, definitely. Yeah.
And Berta, you're building bridges right now to reach even younger minds, right? To kind of present entrepreneurship to a very, very young audience.
Yes, we are. Actually, my short answer to the question was show them the money, because we now have an ocean academy. We have that under the hat of Iceland Ocean Cluster, and we are actually reaching out to younger people, and we are trying to teach them a little bit about the blue economy and how to create some opportunities there, and actually just coming up with an idea and creating a product and take it to the market. So they actually, I've been teaching this in last summer, so they actually get like a crash course in how to start a company and make it successful. So that's what we have been doing, reaching out to younger people through education. And I think that sometimes when we look at the educational plan, and I think this actually applies for most of the countries, at least according to my personal research, is that we are teaching kids everything about mathematics, about English, about geography. We are doing all of that. But we are not teaching them maybe how to be successful or how to think sort of wide and broad and take their own ideas and build on them, and sort of look into the future, believing in themselves. I think this is lacking from most educational plans around the world. We were very lucky when we got Bala into Iceland, and he founded and he sort of started this startup scene with also the acceleration programs like we have now. Because you spoke about crossing industries earlier, Patrick, we actually have a great accelerator in Iceland where we take companies from both the agriculture and the seafood industry, and we put them together and they work together, even though they're working on separate projects. This is just a program they go through to push them forward. Also, what I would also tell young people today is to think about their network, strengthen their network, constantly network. Also, if they see a mentor, if they see some senior level people they can connect with, do it. Also look around, because maybe the mom, mother, or the father of your best friend, they could be your biggest supporter. They might be working in the industry. They might be very well linked to investors. So this is what we are trying to do with the Ocean Academy. We are trying to go through the educational level to get people thinking about how can I make a difference with my own idea. So maybe, Hrönn, if I had met you at the age of 22, then maybe I would have been able to get you to think about it sooner.
Yeah, I mean, I can second what Bertha is saying. I do believe that entrepreneurship and actually having the capacity and the confidence to build something needs to be encouraged at a very young age. And I have actually, I'm teaching a class in Reykjavik University, on entrepreneurship and innovation and all that. And what we always encourage founders and students to do is to say, you know what, you don't need experience, you don't need expertise, you don't need anything. The only thing you need to get really focused on is the customer's problem. And if you really focus on and become an expert of a customer's problem, there is no other experience that is going to replace that. That is going to be the most important thing. All other things you can build, and that's what entrepreneurs do, bring diverse groups of people together. And it can be somebody very young. And I think if I can say this, programs like Y Combinator and Techstars and a number of other accelerators globally, and the ones that we run in Iceland, has shown that you don't need to be an experienced person to build a company. It is no longer true. The reason experience was important was because of networks. Today, with the advent of global social networks, you can build a network on your own. It doesn't matter how young you are. You can, if you have the initiative, if you really believe in something, you can actually connect with people like me and Thor and Bertha and Hrönn and Patrick and Chris. All you have to do is go and look in any of the social networks and find those people and reach out to them and tell them what you're building. And guess what? 1 out of 10 will find that interesting and say, hey, I'm interested to learn more. Tell me more. I'm one of those because I get a bunch of requests from founders all over the world. And I'm always happy to help them in their journey. Doesn't mean we invest, doesn't mean that I take them on as a mentee. But what it means is that if one person gives them that push and says, you know what, you can do this, you don't need anything else, I think that's what's needed. And I think lots of people who are at least in my line of work are doing that. And I think that is exciting. That's very, very commendable. And we should encourage more people to do that. And I say, if you're an experienced person from any industry, become a mentor, take a 18-year-old or 17-year-old and share them your network. And maybe, you never know, that might actually lead to something much bigger than what you've done so far. And go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, if I may add a little bit, I just wanted to mention that I think because there are so many of our friends with us now today that are thinking about clusters and building, hopefully, cluster who's. One thing that I've noticed that I tend to be very lousy at picking the right ideas. We are not. It's not my role. I am basically trying to find people that might have the attitude, and these are often young people. And I think it's very crucial for us not to have too much of like these. The idea is not for us to pick only those that we think are super sophisticated. We need to have people that come with fairly easy sort of ideas that are not really that complicated often. And we need to say this is a good start. This is a good way to start. So I always remember when the guys in my house came to me with the idea of lava cheese. And I must tell you, they had another idea. They stopped with that idea, and then they came to me and said, "We want you to look at another idea." And I said, "What's the idea?" "We want to grill cheese and sell it in boxes." And I thought it was such a lousy idea. I didn't say anything. I was courteous enough. But the fact is, they've sold now around 500,000 boxes. So we need to keep in mind that often, especially I think the new generation is coming with ideas that you have no idea whether it's a good one or not, but be tolerant. Whether it is just a very simple idea of, it seems to be, to fry cheese, or whether it's a sophisticated biotechnology, I would like to see the clusters being super tolerant towards, especially in my industry, being natural resource industry. I love it when I find fishermen coming to the Ocean Cluster House with ideas, maybe taking their liver into a little bit more developed product. Nothing super at this point, but at least finding a way to nurture these individuals with these attitudes of improving and doing things better.
Absolutely.
I would also add one more thing to everybody who is here. I think there's like 70 people. When an entrepreneur comes and tries to sell you their product, just buy it. Just buy it. You know, don't try to compare it to Google. Don't try to compare it to the big product. Just buy it. Okay, you're not going to lose anything. Just buy their product. That will give them the confidence to go and make it better. Okay, so when a new founder comes and tries to sell me anything, the first thing I do is, what is the product? And if I can buy it, I usually buy it. Whether I'm going to use it or not doesn't matter. I usually just buy it. And by the way, I was the first buyer of lava cheese, and I'm also an investor in lava cheese. You know, because I knew Gudmundur. I knew Gudmundur so well. He came and pitched me this idea of a cheese, and I said, okay, I'm buying it. Where's the product? Give it to me. He gave it to me in a plastic bag. Okay, no packaging, none of that stuff was there. I bought it. You know, I think I paid like, I don't know, 1,000 kroners or something. It didn't matter. I said, fine, give it to me. I'm buying it. That gave him a little bit of confidence. And then when he went into the Funder Beam campaign, I was the first one to write a $10,000 check. I said, I'm an investor. There you go. Take it. Go build the company. So
Absolutely.
all the people who are here, just encourage people who are trying to build things, because that's how you're going to change everything. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. I'd like to end on one last quick question, and I'll direct it to you, Thor. Because my wife knows that, you know, our first endeavor, my first desire for a product was a magnetic kitchen hand towel. And, you know, you could throw it across the room and hold right onto the side of the fridge. I thought, oh, this is brilliant. And I didn't have the courage to sell it, right? At that moment, I just didn't. But we don't know where winners or losers are going to come from. And there's really no loss in any of this. There's just process. So last question I'd like to ask, and Thor, this comes from our USM partners, as well as state government partners here in Maine. How has the Icelandic government, or, you know, what support has the city, the state, the government programs, university programs, has there been support for this entire work that all of you are doing that has come in, and what has been useful there?
I think it's a very good question. I think probably the most important part which the government has played is to offer competitive grants for startups. And we are seeing so many of the startups within the Ocean Cluster that have benefited from it. So that's been a huge benefit. We also have a very close relationship with the city of Reykjavik now. And it means that we have a very, it is very helpful to have them close by. I would also like to add, which is very important, is that if we call up the Minister of Fisheries or Minister of Innovation or the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Iceland, they will all respond and be very helpful with our requests. So it's a part of the whole thing is to not necessarily say that they have to hand out the checks all the time, but be willing to assist us in various ways. And I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs is a very good example for us. He's been very helpful with our expansion to other countries. He's been talking about the cluster in various countries. So all this is a part of what we do. So government plays a role. I don't want it to be government operated, the clusters themselves, but the government is assisting us in so many good ways.
Absolutely.
I
Go
think
ahead,
I
Bob.
accidentally answered a question without answering it. There was a question about deal flow of founders and startups in Iceland. I mean, Iceland is a very vibrant ecosystem today. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of founders building great companies. I run a small seed fund and a seed studio. We are a thematic studio, although it is not in the ocean space. we have invested in I think about 8 Icelandic teams now, and we've been operating for only about 2 years. And there are plenty of others who are building great companies, massively big companies. And all you need to do is look at the funding report on Iceland in terms of startups that have raised money. I even saw that Iceland is only second to Tel Aviv in terms of concentration of venture capital to founders. And that is a very interesting metric, because proximity to investors is a very important criteria, that you should be able to access them, and you should be able to pitch them, and you should be able to tell them what you're building. In Iceland, that is very, very, very easy, because just like Thor said, it's not just the ministers, almost everybody is accessible. And I think that solves some of the founder issues, and the universities have become extremely founder, startup oriented. They've been promoting the idea that entrepreneurship is a viable career. You don't have to go and look for a job. You can build your own job and also make jobs for others through entrepreneurship, which is quite exciting to see coming from academic ecosystem. I mean, now we have a science park in Iceland, and I know Thor has plans to build a bunch of other things related to science parks and bringing young founders into a house, just like Ocean Cluster. So these are all, it takes time to build, but anybody can start, right? Anybody can start doing that.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up the time that we have. I would like to say, here at the New England Ocean Cluster, while Maine is 41st in the country for GDP per capita, we do have, through Maine Technology Institute, competitive startup grants. And we have a tenant here at the HOOS, the Maine Center for Entrepreneurs, who runs incubators and accelerators. So the difference between us and Iceland is not the availability of resource, but it may be the ratio of cups of coffee that we have together. And it may be the number of lunches that we have together. So I'm inspired and very grateful for all of you to share your stories with us. I will add Icelandic Ocean Cluster products are here at the HOOS, including Feel Iceland's line of products. So you can come by, we'll give you the cup of coffee, and you can buy products here. But I'd like to thank all of our panelists, first of all, for being here and sharing this with us. And then I just asked Chris, if you can take us out with the technical details, the video recording, how this comes about. Chris, can you take us out?
Thanks, everyone. We did record it, so we'll post this and share on our social media and put it on our event page on our website. Share with you panelists as well. And then we put some of the contact information, at least social media wise, into the chat. But please don't hesitate to send us an email, and we'd be happy to connect you with anyone who participated here on the panel. And they're all wonderfully supportive of people with questions and interest in what they're doing. We're looking at a panel of entrepreneurs as well as educators, as well as good people. So, if this is your first time meeting any of them, make sure it's not your last.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. This has been wonderful. And we look forward to meeting everybody in person post-COVID travel restrictions.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.